I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. You tell your stories, talk about the town. I'll just ask questions that help maybe stimulate memories. As I said on the phone, these are your stories to tell. It's not about me. And at the end, I will give you an opportunity to, if there's something you think we've missed, that you think you'd like people to know, then you'll have an opportunity to talk at the end.
All right with me.
Okay, and if you could introduce yourself, talk about, when you first came to Star and...
Well, I'm Hank Day. We moved into Star in early spring. Oh, no, it wasn't either spring because the sunflowers were bloomed. And so it was probably July of 1960, where Sully's is down here in the middle of town. That's where I grew up. Our rent was $30 a month. Of course, you only made, my mother only made a couple $100s a year, so $30 was quite a bit. And there was 8 of us as kids in the house. I had 5 older brothers, older sister, and a younger brother. We lived in that house for a week before we got all those sunflowers cut down. We found that one of the old rail cars used to run on the rail line here in Star that was out in the backyard there. Didn't have any chassis under there. It was just the frame of the car and stuff like that. But we lived there until I was 18 years old and ran the streets of Star from the time we was 6. We were mischievous, but we didn't get cross that line too much because my mother didn't care whose kids you were. She would turn you over her knee and spank you just like you was her own. And she would never had a stray in the neighborhood that she wouldn't take in and feed them, repair their clothes. I have a lot of my brother's friends called my mother Mom. And I grew up with the Kirtleys. They was right next door, and I met Jack when he was 5, which was a little older. We used to have BB gun wars. I know you'd get in trouble for doing that now. And my little brother, they was shooting at us, Mike and, it's Butch Kirtley and Mike Lindsay, they're cousins, and they was shooting at us with their BB guns. These are CO2 BB guns. Not like us, we had the other thing. My little brother went in the house, grabbed a 30-30 rifle that I have now, took it out of the gun rack, headed outside because it looked just like theirs, right? He's going to shoot him. My mother caught him walking out the door. That's when she made my brother start unloading the guns in the house. And I've seen him, that was in 1960, around that time, because we wasn't there very long. My little brother got killed on the 4th of September in 1970, got killed in front of the Star Merc here. We was down there catching the school bus. Jack and I was in there, and we move out these stuff, and where it was raining out, kind of like it is today, a little sprinkles. We moved the rack out that they had dog food and lawnmowers and stuff like that out the front door. The doors used to be in the front of the building. We rolled it out, and we were back in the store, and somebody said the little Dave boy got hit. I go, we don't have a Dave boy in town. I didn't hear him right. So I went outside, and my little brother, in front of Steve's Auto Repair, which is across from the store, my little brother was crossing the crosswalk right about the middle of the, where the Star Cafe is, used to be the Texaco station, and the car hit him there, and he ended up in front of that store. So, when you're 16, you think you're pretty macho. So walked down there to see who it was, and I seen his legs were twisted, and he had a big gash in his arm and a hole in his head. It kind of caved in on the front. And I asked somebody how he was, and they said he's dead. And I said, okay. So I went back across the street. I'm going to go back to school, right? And Bill Kirtley came out and says, you didn't want to go to school today anyhow. And I said, well, I guess not. And then Mary Kolsky, who used to be Mary Foster, she gave me a ride home. So that's how I dealt with that. And I've seen a lot of death. All my brothers have died. I got one sister left. My mother's died. My stepdad, nieces, nephews. No nieces yet, but nephews. I've lost 3 or 4 of them. And, I have people tell me that I have a weird outlook on life, but you're not going to get out of this world alive. So you either deal with it or you don't deal with it. You can mope and cry all you want, but it doesn't bring them back. So, and we did that. And like I say, us kids, we ran the streets. We'd go down here at the Boise River, jump off the old ledge, and play in there all day long. Nobody cared where we were. If you did that with kids today, oh man, the health and welfare would be on you and come and check, and you're neglecting them and stuff like that. But we didn't do any damage down there. We just swam in the river, played. We camped overnight sometimes down there. Come and go as you want. Neighbors would watch out for you. They'd call your parents if you got in trouble. And we'd have snowball fights in the wintertime. And I was teaching people how to drive cars when I was 12 years old. I'd take them out in the foothills in my brother's pickups and the cars, teach them how to drive. And my reward sometimes for driving my brother's cars down, he had this old 58, 59 pink Cadillac. I could drive it from our house down there, Sully's, down to the Chevron, fill it full of gas. My reward was driving the car down there, but I had to wash his car for doing this. I'm thinking, hold it now. After I got older, I'm thinking of getting taken advantage of. And then I'd live with my brother in the summertime on his farm. We had horses, and we just had a great time. I seen him lay the first sewer line in Star in it was probably 65, because we was established in 66, but they started doing the stuff. And I have the records of the first flows of sewer water coming into the treatment plant. And I have all those ledgers. They would only look at it once a week. And we had 5 miles of sewer line back in the day. And they put it in, I mean, some of the town people, and they did it with levels, nothing like they have today. And I have those books, and I have the original town plat of the sewer lines. We had 5 miles of sewer line. This is 2023. We have over 100 miles of sewer line now. And our flows that came in there was, a couple hundred gallons a day. Now we have over 1 million gallons a day, and it's going to get higher. I mean, Star has changed a lot, and people complain about the growth that we have now. They was complaining in the 60s that the growth was too much in Star. There was nothing here but farm ground. I mean, a few houses. And if you go on the west end of town, there's a coffee shop on the north side of the road. It was Bobby Jean's. I'm not sure what they call it now. It's some other name. That was the old rail station. And when I was a kid, it used to set out on Highway 16 and 44. Then they moved it down here behind where Bernil Tires is. And Kurt Wilkins moved it down there and put it up on there and made it into a building he was going to sell for retail or something. And then somebody bought it and made it into a coffee shop. We did that. And where we're sitting now in this building was the old Payette Lumber. Then after it was Payette Lumber, it was Hadley's Hardware. And maybe you guys have talked to Margaret Hiskey. Hadley's had a place north of town here, and this was Hadley's Hardware and Implement. They sold international tractors, and I had one of those tractors. It was probably in the 40s model H, and it says Hadley's Hardware and Implement, phone number, and it had like 3 numbers on there, some ridiculous thing. Then it became a lumber yard after that. Kirtley's owned it, and when they moved it over to the store, they built this building in 1985. They sold it to the fire department, and they built this station. Their old fire station is right across the Star, Steve's Repair. When I was a kid, it had 2 stalls in there, and they added on the other stall to park the old truck in. Then years later, they added on a boardroom for firemen to have meetings in the back. And then Ren Ross was a fireman. They added on living quarters on there. So that's how that all came about. And the Beer Guy Saloon, that was Sam's Saloon. And back before then, it was apartment for people to live in. It had 2 apartments in the back. And it had, it was a upholstery shop. But way before then, it was a gas station. And if you pull off that wood on the front, still says Hoffman's across there. In the store, like I say, it was a whole bunch different back in the day. At this end, where there's trailers and stuff parked, was Ivy Jean's Cafe and Bar. Next to it was the store. Next to it was an empty little building. And then next to it was the Time for 5 saloon. We called it Dirty Ed's. because it was just a nasty place. And then at the very end where you enter the store now was the barber shop in Star. And then where the gas station is, it used to be the old Chevron gas station. And Eldon Ross and Guy Marcus ran that. Eldon did more of the bookwork and the pump and gas, and Guy Marcus was a great mechanic. You bring in a car and it'd make a funny noise, and he'd tell you exactly what it was. And that's how that used to be. And then where those trailers are across the street from the store used to be the old bank building. And they tore that down, and it had a post office in there. And the post office was probably not a lot bigger than this room. And we had Agnes used to work in the post office, and Sybil. And Sybil had her granddaughter there. Well, I'm just a little kid. And that's where they dropped off the Greyhound bus, bring a bag of mail in. And you go in there and you say, I need the mail for whoever you was. Of course, they knew who you was. They'd hand you the mail. We didn't have mailboxes. Then years later, they built that new big post office, the one right behind the store. It's not very big either. And like I say, Star has grown a lot over the 60-some years I've been here. I've seen a lot of change. Is it all good? No. Is it all bad? No. Growth's going to come. But we worked in the farm fields, probably snuck around and did things we weren't supposed to, but we didn't destroy people's property. So we did that. And like I say, we played at the river, went to school. I knew all my teachers. Went to the first grade at the Star. You went through the 6th grade. Then you went to Eagle, to the junior high there. And they just changed the year before I got there, or the year, maybe 2 years before. It used to be this 7th, 8th, 9th. Then it was just 7th, 8th. Then you went to Meridian High School. And Star was considered poor white trash. Can't say it any better than that. I mean, we were the bottom of the barrel. We're at the very edge of Ada County. And we weren't as good as the kids in Eagle. Leastwise, that's the way they treated us. But it was funny, because once we went to Eagle, then when we went to Meridian, Eagle was no better than Star was. It was really kind of funny, because Eagle was a big city, right? Big city in our standards. It probably had 3,000 people. I think my graduating class had 300 people, something like that. We only had 1,200 people in the whole school, and that was back in '73. And most of the kids that I went to school with, grade school, went to Meridian High School. Sam Rosti, he's a big farmer out here, a good farmer. My uncle, he's a farmer out here. He's actually related to Sam. That's his uncle also, different side of the tree. And the Phillips across the river, I've known them since they was little kids. Charlene Phillips is the kids' mother. And I grew up, and yeah, she just calls me Hanky. Everybody calls me Hanky. People ask me if it offends me. It's better names than I've been called. And my brothers used to just call me Snot Rag. Did I care? I don't care what you call me. I'm not thin-skinned. You know, some people say, well, I don't know why that doesn't offend you. Didn't hurt my feelings. I'm in the store, and Butch is 70-some years old. He still says, Hanky, come here. Doesn't bother me. You know, it's just a name. I mean, some people are offended by everything you say to them, and you got to get up pretty early in the morning to offend me. You know, if you call me maybe a liberal, I might be a little offended over that. I might say something over that. I try to treat everybody the same in the sewer business here. We sell permits to people, and I have to deal with contractors, developers, engineers, and I try to treat them all the same. If you're building something here, I don't care if your little guy got 10 lots or your big guy had 300 lots. I can't treat you any different. Just because the guy that has 300 lot makes more money, it costs him more money to do everything. Because land around Star now, $200 an acre. When I was a kid, heck, you could get this foothill ground out here for $25 an acre. Now it's really expensive. And if you dig down in here, in the street out here, some of these places you will find the old railroad. The old water system in Star. They used to have about 8 or 10 artesian wells in here. Different people had them. The biggest water line in town then was 2.5 inches, maybe a 3-inch line. They're still there. They're not active. They've only shut them off after '95. Some of them shut off maybe 2000, because we put in our own water system. And it's really funny because where I lived, there was 4 houses hooked up to a 3/4 inch water line. And you had 8 to 10 pounds of pressure, 12 on a good day, if nobody else was using it. You couldn't have water upstairs because there wasn't enough pressure to get to the second floor. So when you wanted to do laundry or something, you ask the neighbors, hey, can you shut off your water? And things like that. And now we got 75, 80 pounds of water pressure in Star, good water pressure, another 100 miles of water lines and tanks. We got a 1.5 million gallon tank and, 5 or 6 wells and all that. It has changed a lot. Like I say, is it to the better? Some of us old people say, no, we liked it when it was nice and quiet. You knew everybody coming down the road and stuff like that. So, and like I say, we'd run down the river and we'd swim. We'd drive our cars up and down the gravel roads, hot rod, going way too fast. But if they had 100 people come to Star a day, he was doing good. Now you got 100 cars an hour, easy. And that's just in the afternoon. During the morning, they're backed up to Blessinger. But they are fixing the roads and stuff. And a lot of people don't seem to understand that you can't build a 6-lane highway when you only have 400 people supporting it. And there's things like that. And like I say, I worked on a lot of these farms around here, helped the guys. Gary Olson's a friend of mine. He grew up just south of Star here, right there on Joplin. And they grew up, and there was Larry Kinsley. And the town had a lot of kids. Knutsons, they lived over here, and they had like 8 or 9 kids. Pearsons, there was 13. We had 8 in our family. So, a lot of these, you might have 100 kids in Star, but there was only 10 families maybe had it. It seemed like it anyhow. And my wife, I met her in the 1st grade, kind of met her. She was in my class. I got a picture of us sitting side by side together in the 1st grade. She didn't want anything to do with me in the 1st grade, of course. I didn't want anything to do with her. She lived outside of town. I lived in town. And she was a nice girl and stuff like that. She didn't want to talk to me in grade school, junior high, high school, because we just ran in different circles. When we was 23, she worked with my sister. My sister kept bugging me to take her out. So finally I took her out. 3 months later we had married, been married 45 years, and haven't regretted a day of it. So she's pretty good. Her sister wasn't so sure she should have married me, but I wasn't married to them. I didn't want to be married to them. So, and I'm trying to think what else has happened to Star. I've seen a lot of things move, a lot of things that you see in town that you say, I wonder what that was. Where Sully's is, where we grew up, that used to be the old livery stable. You couldn't dig in that yard when I was a kid, when we first moved there, without running into horseshoes. Behind there was the dairy and the slaughterhouse in that area. And like I say, where Blake Trailers was across the street, that was just an old machine shop. On Star Road, Bud Kinsley, he was the guy that worked on all the farmer's equipment for doing welding and sharpening and chopper blades. And his son Larry actually quit school when he was 16 and went to work for his dad. And that guy can weld anything, build anything there is out of steel. And my other friend's dad out here on Plummer Road, Leroy Stevens, his son Delbert is there, and his younger brother Clifford was my best man, and I was his best man. We've known each other since we was in the 1st grade. And we used to work out there, and Leroy and Frank Rowe and a bunch of other guys leveled most of these roads here in town or fields and stuff for him farming, and he built his own equipment. He was a genius when it came to metal work, but back in that day you had to be. And I watched him lay the first gas line in town. Those kids that climbed down and get those trenches, they was 7, 8, 9 feet deep. Kids didn't understand that the bank could fall in and kill you. But the contractor didn't seem to care we was in the trenches either. Nowadays, you could have OSHA out there, and somebody would say, get out of here, and call you names and throw rocks at you because you're little brats or something like that. But we didn't have that issue. We have snowball fights that you can't have in school anymore. and we'd play dodgeball. And like I say, we was out driving when you weren't supposed to be driving. We got kicked off the bus one time when we was in the 7th grade. One of my friends did. So I come home and tell my other buddy, we go get his dad's brand new, I think he had a 67 Buick Electra. We're in 7th grade, right? We go get in this car, we drive out there, past the Emmett Highway, out towards the old feedlot there to pick up our buddy and bring him home. Brought him home. Well, the bus driver, Mr. Waterman, who used to live on the west of town here, he went looking for him. He got feeling bad about kicking the kid off the bus. He couldn't find him. So the next morning, he asked the kid, he says, well, where'd you go? How'd you get home? He said, oh, Butch and Hank came and got me. Well, when Waterman seen me, because I had to ride his bus to school, he grabbed me and slammed me against the bus and said, look, you mess up on my bus again and I'll kick your butt. Only he didn't say butt. And, you know, I understood exactly what he meant. There was no nonsense with him. He's an old ex-Marine. And all the rowdy kids got him for their teacher. And he would slam me against the wall and say, this is the way life is. And, you know, you did a lot better in those classes. You know, these kids nowadays, you say, well, you can't do that and stuff. My son, when he was in school, he was causing a little trouble. I said, just grab him, take him out in front of class, bend him over, and spank his butt. Oh, we can't do that, Mr. Day. I said, well, I can. Send me a note home. And, you know, they said after he was a senior, they said, you know, if you stay right on him, he does really good. He gets straight A's in classes if somebody makes him do the stuff. But if you tell him one day he can wear a hat, the next day he can't, it's not going to happen. And I'm probably the same way. I kind of do what I want when I want. But I try to do the best I can for the public around here for working. I've remodeled houses. I've done all kinds of stuff. Rode motorcycles way too fast. Probably drank way more beer than I should have, but don't drink any anymore. Don't need it. My wife's a pretty religious girl. I've heard her cuss twice in 45 years. Yeah, 2 words. And they weren't none of them very dirty. I mean, I can't hardly speak a word today without swearing a little bit because things just slip sometimes. And when you're around construction workers, you hear a lot of language. My engineer, Justin Walker, works at Keller's. He's a pretty good Mormon guy. He's my wife's bishop. And I've took him out and talked to some of these farmers. He said, I've heard that F word a lot. I said, yeah. I said, I hear it out here too. I said, just let it go one ear and out the other. It's not a big deal. But he said, I would have got a honor violation in school. I said, you're not in school anymore, but you're getting an education. So, you know, it's really funny. I like the guy. You couldn't ask for a nicer guy. And his kids are excellent kids. They come over to help me at my house. Sometimes they wouldn't take any money. I still gave them money anyhow. I'll give them $100 a year. Take your mom out to dinner, not your dad. Your mama raised you and made sure you're still breathing air. Dads, you can get them any place, you know. But yeah, and I see one of my board members just walk through. I meet with him every morning about 5 o'clock. He comes in here. I get here about 3:30 in the morning. I wake up, might as well be at work. And people keep saying, when you're going to retire? Well, I'm going to retire when I find somebody's going to take care of stars as good as I want it taken care of. And that may not happen real soon. I'm hoping I can find somebody I can train and someday say, here's the keys. It's all yours, Junior. Now don't mess it up because I know where you live. So, I mean, when we started out, the sewer plant had 3 lagoons down there when I started out. I never even seen the lagoons when I was a kid. They was building them. Who wants to go down the sewer plant? Nobody. And I got the job. Now we just did a $30 million upgrade to the wastewater treatment plant. And we probably got, well, the last upgrade was probably a couple $1 million. And then we built the new plant in 2006. That was $5 million. And before, you know, it was nothing. Of course, everything costs a lot now. And we got a lot of lift stations. And like I say, we go clear to Kingsbury, up to the foothills, up to Highway 20, past Highway 16. So our square miles is a lot bigger than it used to be. And like I say, we ran the streets And behind this building, my wife was born here in Star, and they owned the house here. And my son Nathan lives in the house they traded this house straight across for, and 5 acres. They had 5 acres out there. They've done some upgrade to the house, and her dad's uncle, I think, Frank McGrath, I think it was his uncle. He was the last constable of Star. And my son Nathan has his badge, and it has the sap that they used to carry. Cops used to carry sap, and Nathan has that. And my father-in-law used to play baseball, and he was really good. He was going to be a pro ball player. He was semi-pro, went to the Denver Braves, and my son Nathan has his uniform, all in a shadow box. He has that. So he has a lot of stuff. Nathan has a lot of history on Star because he really likes to collect everything in the world. He's got beer cans, he's got bottles, he's got coins and all these stamps, things like that. Everything he sees, he just kind of collects. So he's the keeper of a lot of stuff, and he has a lot of history. A lot of the old photographs you see of Star that they have in the store and places like that, he actually found those, and he bought them and took photocopies and put them out. So we had that, and I'm just thinking about some of the old guys in town. We had a guy that used to live across the street here. There used to be a motel, and they called him Jump Creek Slim because he was from Jump Creek over by Jordan Valley. His name was Walter Zarling, and he worked for Leroy Stevens out here. And the story that Leroy told me, and I believe Leroy because I don't think he'd lie to me, he said, old Slim, drunk or sober, could chop more corn with a 2-row pull behind chopper than a guy on a 3-row self-propelled could. And he said when it'd break down in the field, Slim would jump off, fix it, and get right back to work. And he said he had crescent wrenches, screws, nuts, bolts, everything in his pockets. He told me, he says, one time at lunch, he weighed those coveralls. They weighed 29 pounds. Now, I don't know if it's true, but I don't think he lied, because we cleaned his shop one time, his sons and I, and we're out there cleaning the shop, and we're taking all this junk out. And he comes in the shop, he says, where is that piece of metal that was over there? And it's thrown in the corner. He said, where's that piece of metal at? And we told him, well, we threw it on the scrap pile. He said, I bought that in 1967 for $26.56. And I said, nonsense. Nobody can remember that. He went over to a filing cabinet, pawed through some papers, and pulled out the receipt. And that's exactly what he paid for it. And I wouldn't have believed it for nothing. But he had the proof right there. We went out and found the piece of metal, brought it back in. It was a piece that he had bought special for one of his pieces of equipment. And some of his equipment that he went to he had a Fox corn chopper. He went back where they manufactured them back in the day. And he told them all the changes he would make because he didn't like some of the stuff they did on there. They offered him a job, told him he had a job anytime he wanted. And next year when the model came out, it came out with all of his changes on there. So these farmers know a lot more than people understand. And I have engineers out here that tell me, the river runs that way. Well, really? The drain ditch runs that way. So I had him put in a pipe one time. I watched him and I said, I don't know why you're putting that pipe in. It's running the wrong way. And the guy told me, he said, well, the river's to the south. I said, yeah, and the drain goes right through here, right down through my uncle's place. I said, how long you been in Star? He said, well, I haven't been in Star at all. I said, I've been here all my life. I know where the water runs. We used to hunt these sloughs and stuff. So, and they put a 24-inch pipe in where an 8-inch would have worked, but not my money. They're paying the bill. They can do what they want. So, yeah, it's just things like that. Yeah, I don't know what else I can tell you about Star.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of good memories growing up here.
All bad ones too. So
what are some of your favorite memories?
Oh, just the kids around town. You could go out and play and ride your bicycles. Nobody cared. You didn't get in any trouble. We'd get up on top of the buildings and we'd throw snowballs at cars, hide. We'd play, Halloween. You'd go out. we'd wax the windows and stuff like that. To the people that were bad, you'd put wax on them. People that were good, you put soap on them. And one time we was we was soaping the store windows. Jack was on the inside because his dad owns the store. I'm on the outside. And we're soaping these windows. This cop comes by. He stops and says, "What the heck are you doing?" We're soaping these windows. He said, "How do you get that store?" And I said, "A key." And they said, "Well, why are you soaping the windows?" "Well, we got to wash them tomorrow. If we got to wash them, we ought to get some benefit out of it." You know, the cop thought we was pretty funny. And he went on about his business. Another time we was throwing snowballs at cars at the car wash when it was a yard, Grandpa Kirtley's yard. And we hit this semi-truck. I never seen a truck stop so fast in my life. He dumped the sand to the wheels and we ran and we hid under the bushes. I was probably 10, 12 years old, 14 maybe. When I went to work when I was 18 for the state, I was over to these people's house, at my boss's house, her and her husband and stuff, and we're talking about Star. He said, "Yeah," he said, "you little jerks over there." I said, "Yeah, we hit this truck one night," and he said, "If I'd have caught you," he said, "I'd have whipped you." It was his truck that we hit, and he said, "I dumped the sand." That's how I knew he put sand there. And he slammed on the brakes. He ran after us. He never caught us. And now that was fun because you didn't really hurt anything. But we did the same thing out of my front yard, only there wasn't as much snow. Jack and I did it. We hit this car. It stopped on a dime because the roads were dry. I mean, what do you know? You're stupid, right? So we ran over to Grandpa Kirtley's. He's over there hiding. My mother comes out the back door and yells for me. And I tell Jack, I says, "You got to come get your coat." He said, "I'll get it tomorrow." Well, I went home and there was a belt waiting for me. Because stupidity, you have to pay for. I mean, if I'd done it down the street where nobody knew, but not in front of your own house. So I learned those lessons really well. And we'd buck hay for these farmers, and we'd work on them, trap gophers. You could hunt pheasants on their ground. Now they won't hardly let you on their ground because too many people cut their fences or leave their garbage and stuff like that. So those are some of my fun memories. I mean, driving cars, hot rodding up and down the streets. Some of these people think that they're going fast down these roads. I've been 140 miles an hour on Floating Feather Road. Was it smart? No, it was really stupid. I had a buddy of mine that used to own the Jerry's Repair. He ran the parts house. Mike Hicks came in and he seen me one night. He took me out in this 69 Nova he had. And it had a 396 in there. It was his race car. And he showed me, he said, "Look at this, Hank." He says, "This thing will smoke the tires off in third gear." And he says, "Here, you drive it." So I pulled off from Brandon Road onto Floating Feather towards Star Road. I let out on the clutch. I killed it, and he laughed at me. I didn't kill it again. I wrapped that thing up and dumped the clutch. I was hitting gravel on both sides of the roads with the rear tires. And I'm doing, before I got to the corner of Star Road where there used to be a ditch, I was doing over 100 miles an hour. He said, "There's a corner here." I said, "Not in my car." We made it around the corner because I slowed down. And we drove a Roadrunner 140 miles an hour on out there. But back in the day, there was no traffic. You could, if you was out beer drinking, if you was underage, all they did is send you home. I knew people, or dump out your beer. Nowadays, there's just too much liability and stuff like that. Not that we drank a lot of beer, but I didn't even like the taste of it. But I got pulled over by a cop one time and he seen a bag in my back seat. He says, "What's in the bag?" And this is Kristen. "I don't know. It's my brother's been driving the car. It's my mother's car. I just drove out there." Opened up, it was oil. But I was worried it was beer. And I'm thinking, because my brothers might have had some in there. So, and my brother-in-law, he ran around with my brothers when they was kids and stuff like that. He married my sister when she was 18. They've been married since 1968. So, what's that, 50? How many years?
55 years.
Yeah, 55 years they've been married. And they had 2 kids, and the one got killed. We used to go hunting up in the mountains here, and we'd take the whole month of September off. September 29th to October 29th. So I'd take my kids, and we'd go up there hunting. And my nephew, he was up there. He used to really love to hunt and take my boys out, and we'd go hunting up there. And on pack trips, we'd take the animals out and stuff like that. And then my nephew got killed, 28 years ago, there at on Harris Creek Road. That's where his grandfather homesteaded that. He was a pioneer of Horseshoe Bend. His grandmother grew up in a little spot over there they call Jerusalem, and they're kind of hillbillies. I mean, you grew up in the hills and stuff like that. And my nephew was killed on July 4th that year. And where he was killed, it was about a half mile, quarter mile, half mile from the old Stevenson homestead, from his grandfather's homestead. And we thought that was kind of ironic. And it was the year before I broke my leg up there elk hunting in 15 places. And it was his fault. And I figured I had the rest of my life to say, oh, golly, I can't get it along, and get some sympathy. A year later, he died, got killed in that car accident. He rolled over there, and I'm going, dang, I got taken advantage of again. But I did make him drive me home to from up there to the hospital. And he had his guns on and his knives. Could be shot a bear and stuff. And I had my guns on because you're elk hunting, right? They wasn't going to let us in the hospital because they don't have to wait on us. My brother-in-law, one of my other brother-in-laws, who is a cop, says, they don't have to let you in here. All right, I'll take my gun off. And he's putting the guns and stuff like that. My wife was not pleased with me breaking my leg, so. But, yeah, we did that. We had a game we used to play down there in dodgeball on the blacktop, and they'd probably call it racist today. We was little kids. We didn't know what it was. When they put the asphalt out there, the game you played, they called it Black Man. I mean, it sounds bad, but we just black man out on the blacktop. I don't know. And you'd have teams, and we'd do that. And some of the teachers there, some of them was pretty decent. Our sixth grade teacher, old man Anderson, I don't know his first name, can't remember, but he was Mr. Anderson. I know that when I talked to him. If you wanted to get out of schoolwork during the day, you just ask him about World War II. It would be the whole day on the war. Or during baseball season, he would bring in the TV. In the World Series, that's what we'd watch. So you didn't have to do any work. But and then Mrs. Turner, the first grade teacher, her husband Jack was the janitor. And back in the day, they had a centennial contest on beards and mustaches, and they probably have it. One of the Turners have that. Boy, he had a beautiful handlebar mustache, a nice beard, and stuff like that. And then I had Mrs. Turner was my one teacher. I can't remember the second grade teacher. I think it was Mrs. Bird. Third grade teacher was Mrs. Marlette, and she was a nice woman. Had a Bible story every morning, and she would have a prayer and stuff, and we did that. And it didn't hurt us. It was probably a lot better for us in life. But three of us boys was twiddling our thumbs one morning up there when she was reading the Bible. We sat in the whole day twiddling our thumbs because that's what she made us do. And we had a girl come to our class, and it was snowing that year. She had never seen snow. So Mrs. Marlette let her go out and play in the snow while all us other kids wanted to go outside. You'd seen snow, sit down and do your work. So she let her go out there for like 15, 20 minutes and play in there. Then our fourth grade teacher, that was Mrs. Watts, and all the boys in school had a crush on her. She looked like, well, now I look back at it, she was probably early 30s, maybe late 20s, because she had 4 or 5 kids, her and her husband. And she was my fourth grade teacher. She was also my little brother's fourth grade teacher and his sixth grade teacher. When he got killed, she came down to the funeral, and I got one of the books that she wrote, a nice poem in there, and I got it in my gun safe at home. So I have that. And the fifth grade teacher, that was Mrs. Post. They lived right across here. And then down here on Star, where across from Sully's, there's that big building that used to be the old gym and stuff like that, a skate rink, a dance hall. Well, Henry Post owned that, had auctions there. And where the seniors is, that was his building. And then where the apartments are right behind there was his building. They had auctions there every week or every couple of weeks. And where the seniors is, when Henry had that, then it was empty. After he got out of there, then there was a guy who came in there, had bees. They processed honey. We just called him the bee man. And this guy was, I think he was a little bit crazy. He'd drive down the street in his car, and he'd jump out while the car's moving and spray the top of his car with green paint. And yelling at it, because I'm pretty sure he was nuts. And he's screaming at the bees, "Get out of here!" And he's spraying the top of his car while it's still moving. And but we had characters like that. Nobody was afraid of him. He wasn't going to hurt nothing. And then after that, there was a truck shop came in there that painted semis, Rulin's Auto. And I worked for him a time or two. And I'd just get automotive paint my own cars and boats and stuff from him. And then I'm not sure how the seniors bought it, but then they bought it and remodeled it. And my mother used to go down there and do some of their cooking and stuff like that back in the day. She liked that, doing that stuff. Like I say, she liked cooking and raising kids, I guess. I mean, she must have. She had 8 of us, and she had 15 brothers and sisters. And my grandfather died when he was in his 40s. My grandmother lived to be in her 80s. And somebody asked her one time, "Are you ever going to get married?" She said, "No, once was enough." With 16 kids, I thought once would have been twice as much as it should have been. I had 3, and I thought that was way more than a guy needed. I told my wife I want 1. She said 6. I said 2. She said 4. I said, well, maybe. We ended up with 3. I raised my niece and my nephew. And my wife, she's like my mother. She'll take in every stray there is and feed them, clothe them, buy them lunches and stuff like that. So, and I'm thinking about some of the other people, old Frank Rowe and them. They were just good guys in town. You could ask anybody for help. They'd help you do anything. Nowadays, you ask somebody for help, and they look at you like, how much it's going to cost? What do you got to pay? My buddy Gary, I could call him up today and tell him I need something with his tractor, backhoe, or front end loader. He'd be at my house. He'd come over and do it. And then I'd have a hard time paying him because he tells me, it says, my money, I can do what I want with it. So he did some work for me when I built my new house 5 years ago. And he wouldn't bill me. So I gave him a trailer and I gave him all of this stuff. And I said, well, you haven't billed me. He says, my money, I can do what I want with it. So one of his grandsons wanted a new rifle. I had a brand new rifle that I won. I went and gave it to him in the shells and case. He said, what do I owe you? I says, my money, I can do what I want with it. I said, you wouldn't take no money from me. So here it is. Get away from me. You're breathing my air. And some people don't understand, you know, we go in there and he'll call me nasty names. I call him back and he says, I thought you liked the guy. I said, I do like him. One of my best friends. I said, I didn't call him nothing. I didn't say I like him and he was a good guy, did I? And he said, no. I said, he understood what I meant. What I meant when I talked to him the way I did. How are you, Gary? Hope you're doing fine today. And he said the same thing back to me. Some people just don't understand it that way. We just have a good time. I said, I'd rather have somebody call me an SOB and be my friend than somebody calling me something else. You know, I don't like that very much, so. Well, I'm gonna have to get ready for a meeting, you guys, here pretty quick. You got about 10 minutes. If you got anything else you want to ask me.
Well, you raised a family here. Is this
I grew up in Star, and when I moved out, we moved over to, my mother bought a place on Linder Road and Homer Road. I lived there for a couple years with her and my stepdad. I moved out. I bought my first house on Highway 20 across from Jakers used to be up there. There's a subdivision there. I can still see where it was. I bought that when I was 21 years old. When I sold that house, I bought that house for $16,000, sold it for $32,000. I bought a house in Middleton for $37,000 from my buddy Clifford Stevens. He was moving to Idaho Falls, him and his wife. And I lived there from 79 through 85. I sold it for the same price I paid for it. Then I moved to Caldwell, and I bought a house on 2.5 acres for $64,000. And I sold it 5 years ago for $500,000. Of course, I built a shop on it, did an addition. And then I bought my new place north of Middleton. It's on almost 3 acres, and I built a 1,900 square foot house and about a 2,400 square foot shop. And built my wife a sewing room she likes to sew. So she's got about 750 square foot of sewing room with her quilting machine, and she's got 4 or 5 sewing machines in there and stuff like that. That's her side. My side's the rest of the shop. And I got my tractors and stuff, and we have a place in the hills. And then I used to have a lot of wagons. There's a picture there of 2 wagons I built, and that's my team of mules. My wife on the one on the right, and the other one is my brother-in-law and his mules. And we built 10 different wagons, and we've sold them off. Now I don't have any mules. He doesn't have any mules. I got motorcycles still. I got a side-by-side. I still got my saddle and my spurs and stuff like that. I just don't need them anymore. I don't care if I ever shoot another elk in my life. I like going, drive around, see them. Now I take shots with a camera. A lot easier to pack out. I don't have to clean it. I don't have to have it processed, and I don't have to give it all away. But I can tell you, one year up elk hunting, we had 15 people in camp. Open day, we had 5 elk down by 8 o'clock in the morning. We got 15 elk that year. So in my freezer at home that year, I had my elk, I had my son's elk, I had my other son's elk, part of my brother's elk because he didn't want very much, and part of another hunter's elk that all he wanted was a couple of rolls of salami. So we had elk for a good year. And like I say, we stayed up there for a month, and it was wonderful. We had 5 big wall tents, 12, 14 head of animals, and all the pack equipment you want. We had people come in and say, "Are you outfitters?" "No." "Why do you have these tents?" "We like these tents." "Well, why do you have all these animals?" "Because I'm not going to pack an elk 50 feet on my back. And if I got to pack it, I don't want one." And they just couldn't understand that. "Well, you look like outfitters." Because we had all of our signs on our tents. We had cook tent, the packer's tent, stud tent, the smoker's tent, the redneck's tent, and stuff like that. We had a shower. We had lights up there. You start generator lights coming on in all the tents. We had a nice shower trailer and stuff like that. We had a tack shed out there. We'd bring it in. It would take 10 vehicles to haul all the stuff in. Then you get all these 4-wheel drives out there. So it looked like a professional outfitters, especially when you buy good equipment. Well, I like good stuff. I don't like junk, because junk usually breaks on you, and then you end up stuck someplace in a hole. And we've had to cut our way out of holes when we got down in there with saws and bow saws. Mm-hmm. I think one of the elk my son got, this was in 2006, we bought 4-wheelers, and we camped someplace else. We couldn't get in our regular spot because there was like 18 inches of snow there. So we went up there hunting, and my son, he's got this little route he likes to go, and he says, "I'll be back in an hour or so, a couple hours at the most." He says, "You know where I'll be." So this is at 7:30 in the morning. I said, "Well, he'll be back here about 9. I look at my watch. He's not there. So we wait, and my niece's husband's with me, and we wait. Noon, he's still not there. 2 o'clock, he's still not there. So I go, we got to go find him. So I walk off the mountain, walk down there about a quarter, half mile, and there's a big sandbar. He should have came through there. So I shoot my rifle, and I can hear a shot way down in the bottom of this canyon. Well, he'd got something. So we walked back to the top. We start a fire. It was 5 o'clock when he got up there. And this elk he had shot, he had tracked it down this hill, and he kept going further and further. And he says, "I shot it," and he says, "it fell into this creek, and it slid under a log." He said the log was 8 inches in diameter, and he said, "I got this little handsaw." He said it took me an hour or so just to cut the log out of the way. He was wet clear to his waist. Then he had to clean it. When he got up there, we had a fire going. We warmed him up the best we could. And if it wasn't for us breaking trail, he said, I wouldn't have made it. Got up there, and we put him on the 4-wheelers. Then we got to drive 15 miles or so back to our camp, and he was froze solid. Then he warmed up. The next day, they're going to go on it to get the elk. So they're going to take the animals. They got to drive 15 miles another direction to ride the animals in there. He didn't get back to camp that day until 8 o'clock in the evening. You know, my sister had dinner on and stuff like that. But those are some good memories. And I told him when he turned 18, which was before that, I said, I'm going to take you elk hunting, and I'm going to take you for a month-long hunt. I said, because you're going to get older, you're going to have a full-time job. You're going to get married, you're going to have kids, all these things that might happen. And I said, you're never going to get to do this again. I'll pay all your bills. I'll pay your car insurance. I'll pay whatever. I'll pay your hunting trip. We're going for a month. Best time he ever had in his life. He came home one day out of that month. My brother-in-law came back for something, and he came back up there, but that was the only thing. And he's been hunting with me since, he's 12 years old. Same spot. He hunts with me now. One of my guys that worked with me, he also comes up there hunting now. So him and my son go hunting. I drive the side-by-side around. Say, yep, didn't see none here. So it's things like that that, you know, I got a lot of memories of that. Nathan drew me that picture up there off from my when I used to have motorcycles back in the early 80s. He took that picture off from one of my t-shirts. Well, that's two different t-shirts, and he drew that for me. Now, my other son, he likes motorcycles. So he got me into motorcycles here again a few years ago. So I bought me one a couple years ago, and I actually bought one here a week ago. Last Saturday, I brought it home. So he found me another one. He's got 7 Harleys, I think, now. I'm not sure, but it's fine. He's paying for them, and he likes them. He wants to buy a brand new one this year because he says, I never had a brand new one. And his wife doesn't care, so.
Like you said earlier, it's his money. He can do what he wants with it.
And you can't take it with you.
Nope.
Bill Curley told me that he was going to have a party when he passed away. He wanted me to have a party. I said, just leave me the cash, Bill. I'll write a check and put it in your coffin. But yeah, I mean, like I say, I've known everything in Star that's happened. We got married in the old Friends Church. It's Life Springs now, when it was there. Well, the Christian church, not the Friends Church. Friends Church is down further. All the Quakers back in the day in Star lived north of town. This was a Quaker community. And Hadley's, those were there, and a lot of them. And I remember the Christian church where the Life Springs is. Back in the day, there was a sign up. There's an older Christian church in Idaho built in 18-something. Well, it wasn't that particular church, but that's the site it was. Sherm Willis had a chicken farm here in town. That church was moved over there, and they used it for a chicken coop. There was that, and when we was kids growing up, I mean, the reason people thought Star was so bad, it really smelled bad. We had the mink farm out here. We had a hog farm on the other side of Emmett Highway, a feedlot just east of there, then the chicken farm here. So when the wind was right, it was pretty powerful here in town.